Controlling your dopamine. For motivation, focus, and satisfaction. Why is it that sometimes we know exactly what we should be doing, and yet we can't get ourselves to do it? Why do we stay glued to our phones, chase distractions, and procrastinate, even when deep down we want progress? The truth is, this isn't about weakness or lack of willpower. It's about dopamine, the chemical that drives our motivation, focus, and even our sense of satisfaction. Now, here's the catch. Most people think dopamine is just the pleasure hormone. But that's wrong. Dopamine doesn't make you happy. Dopamine makes you chase. It's the molecule of anticipation, of pursuit, of wanting more. And here's where things get interesting. If you don't learn how to control your dopamine, you end up trapped, constantly chasing quick hits of stimulation, but never feeling fulfilled. That's why so many people feel burnt out, distracted, and never satisfied, even when they're working hard. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman explains it this way. Your brain is like a thermostat. Dopamine sets the balance between effort and reward. Get that balance wrong, and you feel unmotivated, unfocused, and drained. But learn how to manage it, and suddenly you unlock energy, discipline, and deep satisfaction that most people never experience. In this video, we're going to explore exactly that. What dopamine really is, and what it isn't. Why modern life hijacks it. How you can take back control of your brain chemistry. And practical ways to transform dopamine into motivation, focus, and lasting satisfaction. So, let's dive in. What is dopamine really? When most people hear the word dopamine, they instantly think happiness, pleasure, reward. You might even have heard it called the pleasure molecule. But here's the surprising truth. Dopamine is not about happiness at all. It's about wanting, craving, and anticipating. Back in 1998, researchers Kent Berridge and Terry Robinson published a breakthrough finding. Dopamine is more about wanting than liking. In other words, it doesn't guarantee joy. It fuels the pursuit of joy. That's why you can desperately want something, finally get it, and then feel underwhelmed. Think about it. You crave a slice of cake. You imagine how good it's going to taste. That's dopamine working in the background, pushing you toward it. But once you eat it, the actual pleasure fades quickly. That gap, the endless chase without lasting satisfaction, is the very reason so many people feel trapped in cycles of consumption. Now, let me give you a modern example. Social media. Why do we scroll endlessly on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube Shorts? Because every swipe is a fresh dose of anticipation. Maybe the next post will be funny. Maybe the next video will be exciting. It's not the content itself that hooks you. It's the anticipation of the next one. The tech industry knows this. Apps are designed like slot machines, with unpredictable rewards that keep your dopamine circuits firing. They're not giving you pleasure. They're giving you a chase. And here's the key takeaway. If you understand that dopamine is about anticipation, not actual happiness, you can finally stop falling into the trap of endless pursuit. You can start using dopamine as a tool to drive focus, discipline, and long-term satisfaction instead of short-term distraction. What is the modern brain doing wrong? So now we know, dopamine is not happiness, it's anticipation. But here's the big problem. Our modern world is absolutely hijacking this system. There's a concept called the hedonic treadmill. It means that the more pleasure you seek, the more your brain adapts, and the less satisfaction you get over time. Like running on a treadmill, you're moving a lot, but you're not really getting anywhere. Let me give you an example. Imagine you binge watch a new Netflix series. Episode after episode, you're excited, you can't stop. But when it's over, you feel empty. That's the treadmill. Your brain adjusted to the constant dopamine spikes, so the baseline dropped. You need more and more stimulation just to feel the same. And this doesn't stop with entertainment. Food, gaming, endless notifications, even multitasking. It all stacks on top of each other, overwhelming our brain's reward system. Stanford researcher Clifford Nass found something shocking about multitaskers. People who constantly switch between apps, tabs, or devices actually train their brains to lose focus. Their dopamine system gets used to rapid-fire stimulation, and as a result, they can't stay with a single task anymore. The same chemical that was designed to help us survive by giving us motivation to hunt, explore, and create now works against us because modern life constantly floods it. Here's the reversal. The more you chase instant dopamine, the less motivated you become for the things that really matter. That's why people say, "I don't feel motivated to work on my goals." It's not because they're lazy. It's because their brain has been trained to only get excited by quick, shallow rewards. So let me ask you this. Are you living in alignment with your dopamine system? Or are you letting technology and comfort dictate it for you? Because if you don't take control, your brain will keep running on the hedonic treadmill, chasing but never arriving. How can we prevent dopamine from sabotaging us? So if modern life is constantly hijacking our dopamine, how do we take back control? One of the biggest mistakes we make is what neuroscientist Andrew Huberman calls dopamine stacking. It happens when we layer multiple sources of stimulation at once, watching YouTube while eating junk food, listening to music while gaming, checking notifications while working. Each of these activities triggers a dopamine release. When we stack them, our system gets flooded. In the short term, it feels amazing, but in the long run, it burns out your receptors. The brain adapts, and suddenly the everyday things, reading, studying, working on your goals, feel boring, flat, even unbearable. So how do we reset? Here's a practical strategy, what people now call a dopamine detox. Now, I don't mean locking yourself in a dark room for 24 hours. That's extreme. I'm talking about a light version. Once a week, spend half a day with no screens, no processed food, no artificial stimulation. Go for a walk, write in a notebook, stretch, do absolutely nothing for a while. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your brain will crave the hit. But after a few cycles, something amazing happens. Your baseline dopamine resets. Suddenly, simple things, like having a conversation, working on a project, even reading a book, start to feel rewarding again. And here's what's fascinating. Ancient practices already knew this. Buddhist monks, for example, practiced sensory restriction through meditation and silence. They discovered that stillness brought clarity and energy. Today, neuroscience backs this up. Temporary reduction in stimulation increases long-term focus and satisfaction. So if you've been feeling drained, unmotivated, or distracted, maybe it's not because you lack discipline. Maybe it's because you've been stacking too much dopamine. The solution isn't more effort, it's less noise. And the surprising result is, less stimulation now creates more motivation later. How can we turn dopamine into real motivation? Here's something most people get completely wrong about motivation. They wait to feel ready before taking action. They think, when I'm motivated, I'll go to the gym, I'll study, I'll start that project. But science shows the opposite is true. Dopamine doesn't rise before action. It rises after action. Think about it. Have you ever forced yourself to go to the gym when you really didn't want to? You drag yourself there, start moving, and 20 minutes later, you feel energized. That's dopamine kicking in. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. So how do we use this to our advantage? One method is what psychologists call micro-victories. Instead of waiting for huge wins that take months or years, you break tasks into small, achievable steps. Each step you complete gives your brain a little hit of dopamine, enough to keep you moving forward. Here's a practical tool: the Pomodoro technique. Work for 25 minutes, then take a short break. Every completed cycle feels like a win. Add to that a simple checklist, physically crossing off tasks, and you create a series of dopamine triggers that keep motivation alive. Another example. Writers often set a daily word target. Hitting 200 words per day feels small, but each day they get that sense of completion. Over weeks, those micro-victories stack into entire books. This works because your brain's reward system is ancient. It evolved to reward consistent progress, not massive overnight success. Our ancestors didn't kill a mammoth every day. They collected berries, built shelters, step by step. The brain still works that way. So if you want motivation, stop waiting for it. Start with action, no matter how small. The dopamine will follow, fueling your momentum. How can we train the brain to maintain focus? Now that we know how to use dopamine for motivation, let's talk about something just as important: focus. Because motivation without focus is like energy without direction. You'll burn out, but won't move forward. So, what role does dopamine play here? It acts like a spotlight for your attention. Deep inside your brain, the nucleus accumbens and the prefrontal cortex work together. Dopamine decides, this task is important. Focus here. When dopamine is scattered across dozens of tiny distractions, your attention shatters. But when it's directed, your focus becomes razor sharp. The question is, how do we help the brain make that shift? One of the simplest tools is a morning ritual. And no, it's not about grinding harder, it's about resetting your dopamine system early in the day. Exposure to natural sunlight within the first hour of waking has been shown to boost alertness and regulate dopamine. Pair that with a little physical movement, like a short walk or stretching, and your brain gets a clear signal. It's time to focus. There's even research showing that people who get early morning sunlight report up to 30% better focus and energy throughout the day. Think about that. Before you even check your phone, you can prime your brain to stay on task. Another trick: create a single-task ritual. Before starting important work, eliminate as many distractions as possible. Phone on airplane mode. One tab open, a clear desk. You're telling your brain, this is the only source of dopamine right now. And the brain responds by locking in. So here's the shift. Focus isn't about forcing yourself to concentrate harder. It's about designing your environment and rituals so that your dopamine has nowhere else to go but the task that matters. What really creates satisfaction? Consuming or creating? We've talked about motivation, we've talked about focus, but what about satisfaction? Because here's the truth. Without satisfaction, life feels empty. You can be productive, you can achieve goals, but if you never feel fulfilled, what's the point? So here's the big question. Does satisfaction come more from consuming or from creating? Let's be honest, we live in a culture of consumption. We binge shows, scroll endlessly, buy things we don't need. And yes, each of those actions gives us a small dopamine rush. But it's shallow, temporary, and it fades almost instantly. That's consumption. Creation, on the other hand, works differently. When you create, whether it's writing, cooking, building, exercising, or even having a meaningful conversation, your brain releases dopamine too. But it's tied not just to the act itself, but to a sense of progress, of identity, of growth. That kind of satisfaction lasts. Artists often describe this beautifully. Many say the real joy doesn't come from finishing the painting, the book, or the song. It comes from being inside the process, from losing themselves in the act of creating. Psychologists call this the flow state, when your attention and dopamine are perfectly aligned with a task. That's when satisfaction feels deepest. So here's a practical challenge. Swap just 1 hour a day of consumption for 1 hour of creation. Instead of scrolling, write. Instead of Netflix, cook a meal. Instead of online shopping, work out or build something. At first, it feels harder because consumption is easy. But over time, you'll notice something powerful. Your life starts to feel richer, fuller, more meaningful. Because here's the hidden truth. Dopamine isn't meant to keep you consuming. It's meant to push you toward creating a life you're proud of. So let's bring it all together. We've learned that dopamine isn't about happiness, it's about anticipation. It drives us to seek, to chase, to act. But when modern life floods us with cheap stimulation, our dopamine system gets hijacked. That's when motivation crashes, focus disappears, and satisfaction fades. But here's the empowering truth. You can take control. By avoiding dopamine stacking and giving your brain resets, you protect your energy. By using action to trigger motivation, you flip the script and stop waiting to feel ready. By designing rituals for focus, you channel dopamine where it matters most. And by shifting from consumption to creation, you unlock satisfaction that actually lasts. Now, I want to leave you with 3 simple steps you can apply starting today. Identify your dopamine drains. Write down your top 3 distractions, the things that give you quick dopamine hits but leave you feeling empty. Choose one reset ritual. It could be morning sunlight, a dopamine-light day each week, or simply journaling instead of scrolling. Commit to one act of creation daily. Doesn't matter how small. Write one paragraph, cook a meal, practice a skill. Let your brain associate dopamine with building, not just consuming. Because in the end, motivation isn't about waiting for inspiration. Focus isn't about forcing yourself harder. And satisfaction isn't about endless pleasures. It's about mastering the chemistry that runs your brain, so that dopamine stops controlling you and starts working for you. Remember, the true power of dopamine isn't in the next spike, but in the story you build over time. So the question is, what will you start creating today?